afternoon, everyone. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. And a day where we talk a lot of basketball and hockey. It's that time of year. Welcome in. It's great to be here with you on this rainy Wednesday. Good day to watch some hockey if you are able to. And then with the Big Ten tournament going on, it's a good time to watch some basketball, even with Michigan with not just a bye, not a double bye, but a triple bye. They'll be playing on Friday, and we're going to talk about both of the prospects of Michigan. There's some news and notes with Michigan. And then hockey, who they are in action tonight as they start. And they have Michigan hockey. You know anything about Michigan hockey? They have not had great success. Actually, they've never won the Big Ten regular season in hockey, but they have success in the Big Ten tournament. So this is Brandon Arado's specialty, at least, in his 4 years, his 3 previous years. I think he got 2, I think. So he's had some success here. And then, of course, after that, it's the NCAAs. And, for basketball, as they sit around, you can start watching a lot of basketball and more basketball. And this is I love this weekend. I love the conference tournaments, and that's a good place to start. There are some people that they're basketball fans, they're Michigan fans, but they're not really conference tournament fans. They're kind of meh. Conference tournaments, it doesn't matter. They'd rather rest players, sit guys out. They don't think they think everybody's entitled to their opinion on whether it's a big deal or not big deal. We do know that it doesn't mean, if you get to the grand scheme of things, if you want to play that game, that of course you would rather win. Everything is about the NCAAs, but along the way, when you can win something and you can put up a banner and you can win a championship and you're in prime position to be able to do that with just 3 games. There's times, remember when, UConn had 6 games in 6 days, and Kemba Walker. It was an incredible run that they had, but even 3 games in 3 days, it's like, that's all you're doing is watching basketball. And if you're following this, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then of course you've got Selection Sunday, and so the whole day really ends up being, about basketball. I really like it. I really like basketball. And I've always liked the conference tournaments. I like the tournaments before the Big Ten was playing in the tournaments. Picture this, for those of you that don't remember. I think it started in 99, 2000 for the Big Ten. So it's been 26 years that they've been doing it. But prior, you'd head into this weekend and you'd have the ACC tournament, and you'd watch the games, and the fans are going crazy. It's electric. Everybody's going bananas. And then you would have the Big Ten. Let's say Michigan. Michigan would be lining up for a Friday game against Northwestern, and Evanston, and you'd watch it, and it had all the excitement of nothing, like watching paint dry, and you're just thinking, what are they doing? But they rectified that, and now they have it. But there are folks that, and like I said, you can make a case for it. People really like to make a case for resting and not getting guys, not playing guys because they're worried about them getting hurt. And I think with what just happened with LJ Kaysen, I think that's, understandable. People are like, hey, Big Ten tournament's fine, but it wouldn't be all that bad if they just, lost in the first round. Because then they wouldn't, they wouldn't have to play those 2 games. 2 games that guys wouldn't get hurt. Yeah, they would grab some rest, and that would be better than cutting down that, celebrating again, but having to play all these heavy minutes for 3 days in a row, and then they got to turn around and play in the NCAA tournament probably on Friday. And hey, that's only, you think about, they can rest Monday, but Tuesday they got to get ready for a practice. Wednesday they got to probably leaving for whatever site that they're going to be in, Buffalo maybe. And there's too much. I'd rather just take the rest. So it's understandable, even though I completely disagree with it. I like winning. And then Michigan's the defending champs. I loved last year's Big Ten tournament. I can remember when the tournament was in New York and Michigan won it. It was an awesome couple days. And then I would guess that anyone, and we all know people that they kind of turn up their nose at the Big Ten tournament. They're just like, who cares? Let's just wait for the NCAA. It's like, oh, okay, hey, you sound like a real fun person to hang out with. Fine. I would bet that anyone who has ever gone to a conference tournament is not in that category of, let's just get to Selection Sunday and let's just get to next week. Let's fast forward. Forget all of this. Let's lose. That would be my bet. Dusty on Monday said that, well, it was on Sunday, Yak said, they want to have the greatest regular season, or they want to have the greatest Michigan season ever. And to do that, winning the regular season, winning the Big Ten tournament, which has never been done by a Michigan basketball team. They've won a regular season, they've won a Big Ten tournament, but they haven't won both in the same year. So they would have that going for them. And they would be a 1 seed. They've only been a 1 seed 3 times in their history. Those things are important. And then, obviously winning it all, they would have the greatest season of all time. So with it being in reach and being able to put up another banner and cut down the nets again, that sounds like something that you'd want to do if you were a player or a coach. Again, you get to the fans, they have all kinds of reasons for and motivations. Maybe you're working this week and like, I'd rather have just them lose so I don't have to worry about, watching TV at work. I don't know. Again, I just make some things up for that. Dusty on Monday pointed out that Florida last year won the national championship. They won the SEC tournament. And then if you look to the year before, UConn, they won the Big East tournament. And so the last 2, and then in fact, the last 3 out of 4, if you go back to Kansas in 2022, they won the Big 12 tournament. So the last 3 out of 4 teams that won the national championship is what the goal is. We know that. They did well, so well that they won their conference tournament as well, 3 out of the last 4. If you want to keep going back, what you find is that teams that are very good and go to the Final Four, certainly win the national championship, they have success in their conference tournament. So that was enough. I mean, I just like it because it's basketball and you get a chance to win again, but then you seem like you got history on your side as well. So the only thing that you don't have on your side is people that are all about rest and are worried about guys getting hurt. And I get that. Like I said, I get it. I get it in football. In football, almost every person that I've ever been around, once you get into the second half and the team has it could be even a 10-point lead, they want all the starters out. They don't want them to get hurt anymore. They want to get all the subs in, get them out. And almost in every instance, the coaches don't do that. They wait for so long. And for me, it's like, wow, okay, really? You're going to wait this long? And the coaches usually say the following. Players want to play. And when you're recruiting players, players want stats. They want to go to the NFL and they want to get out there. And they also need to build up endurance for the next game. And I don't know, we all, we just look at it like, shut them down, get them ready for next week. Forget winning this. It's just about rest and it's about them not getting hurt. That's what we look at. We're not looking at, I don't know. I think we don't look at the big picture. We don't, we're not all the Division I basketball players or athletes, and they want to win something and they want a ring, and you just want the big ring. That's all. And so that's where I'm sitting with just basketball. Now, if you're out there, you had any thoughts, you can always jump on in. It's basketball time. It's time for you to get in. If you have any thoughts on that, use the feedback. I'd love reading the feedback during the show and seeing where the people are at with everything. Now, a bit of news with the Michigan basketball program is that they are going to lose one of their assistants. Justin Joyner is going to be the next head coach in Corvallis at Oregon State. He is going to stay with Michigan throughout the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament, which is nice. He's going to stay to the end. And so the scouts and everything, that stays the same. And so congratulations to Justin Joyner. If you're a Michigan fan, what do you say to this? You say, I understand. Dusty and what he's done in 2 years, he's put Michigan's already been on the map, but he's taken them, and this has been a fabulous this year. This has been a great regular season. This is the best regular season in the Big Ten in 50 years. That's why he's coach of the year. I know some other people were like, but Hoiberg. Yeah, Hoiberg's a good coach, and this is what you do when one coach wins it, and you think another coach is deserving. You kind of knock the one guy, totally knocking one guy. And I would have voted for Dusty because Michigan didn't lose any road games in the Big Ten, and they won the most regular season games ever in the conference, and they had the best regular season in the conference in 50 years. The argument for Hoiberg is that they were picked nowhere near the top in the Big Ten, closer to the bottom, I think, and that he's done a really good job. So put Nebraska in there. Maybe if Nebraska would have beat Michigan, and that would have been something where you'd consider it a little bit more, but I wouldn't have considered. I would have considered Hoiberg, and I would have voted him too. I would also had Gard up there, Greg Gard. Wisconsin wasn't voted very high, but in the end, I would have put Dusty in there, not because I'm just some Maize and Blue super fan, that's on a podcast. We'll get to a little bit of that in a second, but no, because I think he deserves it, and I just told you the reason why, and so that's why. And when it comes to Joyner, if you have a good coach and you have a good program, other teams are going to grab your coaches. That it's absolutely going to happen, and you wish those guys the best. I talked to Justin Joyner this year at the media day for Michigan basketball. You can actually watch that interview still. It's on TikTok under my name. And I remember thinking afterwards, hey, Joyner, that guy's pretty sharp. I could see him. Boynton, who has already been a head coach, Coach Cade Cunningham at Oregon State. I could also see him getting a head coaching job. But Joyner, when I talked to him, I said, that guy sounds a lot like a head coach. So it's not a huge surprise that that's happening. What is an interesting dynamic with Joyner, just as an aside, is that Justin Joyner's wife is currently the head soccer coach at Oregon. Let me repeat this. Justin Joyner's wife is head soccer coach at Oregon. Justin Joyner is taking the head coaching basketball job at Oregon State. I don't know if that has ever happened. I'm pretty sure there's never been a Michigan coach in any sport, and then that person's significant other that they're married to coaching at Ohio State, or even Michigan State, or maybe even any other Big Ten. I don't know. So that's gonna be a fun one. It'll be a fun one in the Joyner household. Kind of, it really shows you the. I was going to say dynamic. I think I've already talked about dynamic. Maybe that's my buzzword of the day, but the dynamic of, Joyner's in Ann Arbor as an assistant, and his wife is 3,000 miles away, coaching in Corvallis. Talk about long distance relationship. And so they are closer. That's nice. And you're going to get a bump in pay when you're Justin Joyner. And I think almost every single assistant would like to be a head coach. So, congratulations to Joyner. But that is going to be, it might be one of the first questions. He should probably just jump up there and say, yeah, I'm an Oregon State. I'm a Beaver. Maybe I'm just an Oregon State fan every day except one, or except in soccer. I'm actually an Oregon fan. You got to address it. Maybe you have to work on that a little bit, your presentation on how you'd say it. What would I say? I love Oregon State. I love Corvallis. But I like Oregon soccer. I'm going to have to work on it. He's going to have to work on it, I think. I mean, it's there. It's obvious. It just doesn't really feel right, sound right. But, I've thought about it for 30 seconds. You probably come up with something better when you're the Joyner family. And, maybe she can be the soccer coach at Oregon State. I don't know why I'm laughing. I don't know why it's making me laugh, but Mr. Martini is not considering dropping a game in Chicago for the Michigan basketball team. There you go, Mr. Martini. That's what I was hoping to see. I was hoping to see some Michigan basketball fans that are excited about the tournament, Michigan being the 1 seed in the Windy City, and thinking about going all the way to Sunday. What a trip! What fun! Yeah, it's such a nice. It's tournament basketball. It's not the NCAA's. I get that, but it is. It's still such a festival, and it's still so awesome to watch the teams and how it falls and getting through the weekend and the competition. A lot's being said, and I'm going to talk actually about last Sunday's game against Michigan State again. The energy, the excitement, the competition in that game was great. I mean, it was, and you get that again. These teams are going to be, playing with their hair on fire, whatever you want to say. They are going to be trying to win the championship, even if some of their fans are like, I don't care. I'm going to shovel snow this week. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but whatever. I'm going to enjoy the cold. There we go. That's about the tournament. I did see yesterday, I was on Twitter for a second or two, and I saw a Michigan State fan saying that, declaring that Jeremy Fears, it's fine if you're a basketball fan and you want to call Fears a dirty player if you also admit that Ade Mara is a dirty player. And that was this person's opinion. And I saw a bunch of Michigan State. Actually, I saw some Michigan fans, telling them to go to hell, and some Michigan State fans, back and forth. So a little rivalry thing. But this struck me as one of the problems in today's media. Is it a huge problem? No, but it is something to talk about. And it just gets back to the fandom and fans and how it just warps their minds. And, Michigan is not alone. Michigan State's not alone in this. Michigan has plenty of, their media that, they just steer everything, down the super Michigan way. And everybody, when you have to have some critical thinking about something, everybody's just like, no, it's all just maize and blue. That's what all the people that are covering the maize and blue say. That's what I want. But what happens is it distorts reality. So Ade Mara, he did have a flagrant foul where a guy went into him and he followed through and his elbow caught the guy. And it was correctly called a flagrant foul. And you say, well, that's dirty. Flagrant fouls, you can say, if you want to say it's dirty if you get a flagrant, okay. Fears is, to me, what I have seen, trying to say this objectively, he's one of the dirtiest players I've ever seen in college basketball in 50 years. So maybe I was thinking when I was going to say that earlier, you could say, oh, there's been plenty of guys that, have punched players, or you think about that guy from Providence that had that stupid hair patch in his back and he attacks somebody. Those guys are dirtier, you'd say. And I could say, all right, I mean, how many, and I don't know, maybe that guy from Providence had a repeated pattern where, he's thugged it up in a bunch of games and he deserves to be called an absolutely dirty player. And what he did is it's dirtier. If, and you have to put dirtiness in degrees if you're going to be looking at it, just like, and you might not like to hear that if you were Michigan State fans. No, you can't be. Well, that's what you do in basketball. You have a flagrant 1 or you have a flagrant 2, or then you can eject someone. So there are degrees. It was like Fears against Michigan the first time around when he was trailing Yaks and he really got him from behind. Now, he did swipe at the ball, but it was borderline, like my dirty play. He got called for a flagrant, which was the right move, but you go after somebody from behind. Now, he did swipe at the ball, and that's why he did not end up, getting punched in the face or thrown out of the game, because he did go for the ball, even though it was from behind. And even though you don't like to see that, it's, it is part of the game, and it was officiated correctly. He was assessed the flagrant foul. And so you watch enough basketball, you understand, like, okay, you foul somebody. Fouling someone is part of the game. Almost every game, almost every player picks up a personal foul. Smacking a guy on the arm is in hockey. You slash someone, you get out of it, you're holding someone, you interfere, whatever, you knee someone. But, in hockey, you don't check somebody from behind into the boards. That's where you get, a reputation like a Claude Lemieux, or if you're out in the open ice like Bertuzzi, you're going to end up almost getting thrown out of the league. So Fears, is Fears such a creative, dirty player that you'd say you'd have more respect for him if he just leveled up, stepped up to somebody and, swung at him. Well, no, in the rule book, if you swing at someone, you're out. You're going to get suspended. So is he a creative, nasty, dirty player that said, you know what, I'm just going to kick somebody in between the legs because I might get a flagrant, I might not, but they're not going to throw me out. And that's where the discussion with Mara, and I'll try to make this quick. So Mara had the elbow, it was assessed the flagrant, it was correct. Fears against Michigan from behind, swiped at the ball, got Yaks from behind, it was assessed the flagrant. Where Fears is the dirty player in Mara, had the flagrant. We're not going to call every guy that gets a flagrant a dirty, unless you get to that rivalry stuff, and then you start warping people's minds. But Fears, when he donkey kicked that dude at Minnesota, it was right after the Michigan game. You're like, okay, here, okay, yep, defend this, Izzo, defend this, Michigan State fans, and Izzo did. Izzo, I condemn him. I'm thinking about sitting him out, but you know what? And then in his mind, it's like, God, I really need him. That other guy that we're bringing in brings nothing to the table. Then he said, but what about Michigan? And I don't know, what was he talking about? What about Michigan? But he's got a reputation. Well, yeah, I mean, he's got a reputation. We all watched it on film. And the other part is he tried tripping someone. He tried tripping Yaks. And if after that game, if he had just had the flagrant from behind and he had the trip and they came out and said, look, I apologize. I didn't mean to trip him. I didn't mean to have my foot out there. But there was none of that. Instead, Izzo was like, well, what about Michigan? I'm tired of people, he didn't like Dusty saying, look at the film. And he started blaming Dusty instead of his own player. And you half understand it when you're a coach, because Izzo, I watched whoever that, the white dude that came in for Fears. I mean, he's no player. They're in trouble. If he has to play more than 5 minutes, they're in big trouble. I mean, Fears is all they have at point. So you understand Izzo talking tough and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get Jeremy, but he doesn't do anything because he can't. So he has to talk out of both sides of his mouth. It's not his best moment. He can rely on his reputation and himself being a Hall of Famer where, he's able to dance around all this stuff. But, here's the part again where you've got Michigan State, if their fans are like, oh, so-and-so saying that if the Mara is just as dirty as Fears. They're not even in the same ballpark. They're not on the same floor. There's no correlation there at all. But the problem is the State fans like, oh, yeah, what about, your guy Mara's dirty? Okay, you guys, but, you're asking people to think objectively, critically, and they don't really want to. They just want to be fans. They just want to cheer for their team. And then they've got a guy covering the team, that's, pulling them along and, telling everyone flat out lies about that. And then, this is the thing. It just warps people's minds. And you can say, oh, who cares? It's just rivalry stuff. But that's the problem. It's not just with Fears and Mara. It's every team when you have somebody covering them and they all act like, they don't give you even attempt to give you an objective viewpoint on something. It just warps everybody and how they see things. So that's it. What I wanted to say about Fears and Mara. Fears, a repeated pattern of kicking guys between the legs. He should be suspended. And tripping somebody. Tripping and kicking somebody between the legs. These are. You're. A jerk is probably a jerk fits. But it's nasty and dirty and, it's uncalled for. It's not what the sport is made for. You understand fouling somebody hard and actually getting a flagrant? You get that. This is way over on the other side, uncalled for. This is stuff where Tony BTT should be involved in telling Izzo to put that guy on the bench, or he should put Izzo down. And at least could we see a some kind of memo that said, I know Izzo would love that. No more kicking guys between the legs. And I know Izzo said he didn't mean to do it. Did he mean to do it at Minnesota, or did he? He didn't mean to do it against Minnesota, and he didn't mean to do it? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? I mean, I would try to put some, my green and white pom-poms in my hand. Am I supposed to believe that Tom Izzo was telling me that Fears didn't mean to do it against Minnesota and he didn't mean to do it against Michigan? Tom Izzo, who this year actually is Michigan's little brother. He lost both of the games. He's crying about it. And he's acting like a little brother. Oh, he fits all of the things where you'd say, yes, in fact, Tom, you are a little brother this year. So whatever you said is not passing the smell test, is not passing the test. That's it. Don says, what about the timing of the Joyner move? Is that normal, bailing out just before the tournaments? He's not bailing out. He's accepted the job, but he's staying around. There is a change with the portal and the dates. I think it's just been changed this year. You can understand, actually, it would be normal for someone to bail, because if you have another job and you have the transfer portal that's opening, you need to get down to it. Can't be, all right, you're going to help Michigan, but it's time to bail. But they've moved it where he's going to be able to do both. And look, if I'm a head coach and, it's tough, he's got to be, helping Michigan, but at the same time, he's got to be working secondary and third, through agents and trying to bring guys in, because you got to hit the ground. You better come out swinging, because you don't have a good first year. The NIL money and the boosters and people that, it goes down real quick. You got to have immediate success. You better. It helps, obviously. Smash says all that matters is the 6 games in the real tournament. Everything else is just whipped cream and a cherry. I have addressed that. I think this is hogwash. Hadley says, do you think Moo Yu will play little bro in the Big Ten and the Big Tans? No, I hope Michigan doesn't play Michigan State anymore this year. If they do, obviously, it'd be nice to beat them 3 times and 4 times, but let's just have Michigan State bow out early in the Big Ten tournament. Let's see them bow out in the NCAA tournament as well. So we don't have to worry anymore about Izzo or Fears or, guys having to wear cups in the game because they're worried about somebody, going after their, going between their legs because, that's the kind of guy that they have. Whatever. Jay says, did you bust out the Borg after Yaxel was named player of the year? I did not. Where's the Borg? Here it is. I should have, and I was saying that I was going to, but I went to the game, and so I have the Borg. What I do have, Jay, is a few things that I need to put it all together. I've got confetti from Saturday night in this glass, and I did pour some out on Monday. Maybe I was thinking about putting the confetti in the glass, in the Borg, but then obviously I'm not going to be drinking it then, but I could shake it around. I don't know. I've also got this, on the way out, I saw a table and they had this on the table. And it's they had a Big Ten champs. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this? I'm thinking that might also look good on the inside of the Borg. And then the confetti as well. I don't know. When you get things, I had a frame, but it didn't fit. And then I thought, well, do I really want to frame this? And then I thought, I just want to stick it up on it. Which actually doesn't look that bad, does it? But no, I don't think I just want to stick it up on the thing. So I got to work on that. Still working on it. And if you want to criticize me for not drinking out of it, I'll accept it. I think that's a legitimate criticism. But I can say this, even though Smash doesn't care anything, there's whipped cream, doesn't care anything about these games, nothing. I don't know. So, it just makes me feel like nobody's even going to, Big Ten tournament, who cares? People that like competition and like Michigan and like basketball care, Ferris. Stop acting like this is, this ho-hum. I mean, this is what it's about. We spent all year long, this and that, greatest regular season. Who cares? You should care more, Ferris. You didn't care about Duke. You don't care about the Big Ten tournament. It's the first round. You're going to watch the first round. There's only one team that's ever lost. I'll just wait till the weekend. Who cares? If they're up by 10 at halftime of the second round, maybe I'll tune in for the Final Four. I don't know. So you're casual. It's okay. This is more Ferris for this particular podcast. And the Amazing Blue Review is for more rabid, diehard fans that are really into the competition. And hey, it's okay. Casuals, it's nice to have people that are along for, hey, that's nice. My wife wanted I don't know how many games she's watched this year. She's a bigger football fan than she is basketball fan. But she wants a in Dusty We Trusty shirt. And I was thinking, all right, she's into it. Let's get her one of those. Smash says, reflecting back on how Dusty May was unbothered by the R-rated chant in Breslin when Izzo spontaneously combusted with the little brother G-rated chant. Well, I would say this is kind of rivalry stuff. If Dusty won the game, and so when you win the game, it's a lot easier. For Tom Izzo for 30 years after Izzo would sweep Michigan and everything, he would sit up there and he would be so well, the rivalry's great, and the coaches, this is very nice and everything. But when he loses, he's a real sore loser. But a lot of coaches are like that, and I think if you're a State fan, you like that he's a sore loser when it comes down to Michigan. That it looked like it got to him, talking about he's no one's little brother when everybody's actually like, you kind of are that you are this year. If I'm a State fan, I'm saying, that's just Tom. That's him like grabbing his player and shaking him like, get in there. He's so mad. But you like the intensity. Maybe not you, Ferris, because you're not really into you just kind of like, hey, let's watch the last 5 minutes of the game. Maybe they win, maybe not. But, people that are really dialed in and are, living on every moment of this rivalry in this game, they probably got really fired up like, Izzo's going to win the Big Ten tournament. Acting like that. There was certainly, and I haven't read, I've read a few stories about Friday, but there was a question about, the Michigan fans were F-bombing Fierce, F-U Fierce. Were they F-U-ing Izzo? Probably, cat calling and whatever else. And, that happened at Breslin. So they did it there. I don't know. Would you like, as a fan, should fans be better? I don't know how many years ago. I do remember that Izzo a few years ago tried to talk to his Izzone and saying, hey, you can cheer, you can jeer, do all this, but let's not get personal and let's stay away from I think he said, let's stay away from the F-bombs, but it's different now. That probably was more than 10 years ago. And now the rivalry has escalated and it's so much online. Everybody's, just so nasty about it. It's almost like you've become like, that's what you expect. You expect people just to be absolutely, just complete, war almost, where they act like it's just beside themselves, F you and everybody that you ever step. That's the fans on both sides. Let's be honest about that. When you win, it's a lot easier. Hey, great rivalry and everything else. A little bit more difficult when you lose. But is that even that? You're just you're reflecting back how Dusty was unbothered before the game when he went and sat right in front of the Izzone, and then Izzo was really upset after he got swept and lost and was being serenaded. It got to him. Look, you can make the case where, he's just riled up because, he wants to show his team how angry he is, and he is not going to allow it. He took a page from D'Antonio. D'Antonio was always just so angry at Michigan, and then everybody loved it. And he always doubled down, and that's Izzo. He's doubling down, and so State fans probably love that. He didn't like my bracket. Get some glasses, Ferris. Yeah, Michigan. Here's Michigan. Could have been. Don says flagrant is not dirty. Sneaky is dirty. Smash says this sweater jacket would be good for Tigers opening day. He should sell it on his channel. I had considered that it had Tigers. What I would consider for you is that, guess what? It is reversible. How many reversible jackets do you got? You got the blue side. I kind of look like an umpire. But I see what you're saying about opening day. Hopefully, I'm not going to need a jacket on opening day, but opening day, you probably will. Is Fears an alien or is an alien? Oh, Allen. Grayson Allen, I would say. Grayson Allen is dirtier. Maybe Leitner. He did that chest stomp. Was at the Kentucky game. That was a pretty dirty move. But, Fears is in there. I mean, Fears, this is just what I know. I know he had a reputation after that Duke game, but I guess I didn't see the dirtiness in that game. But his attempted trip of yaks and then the two donkey kicks, one against Michigan this last Sunday and then one against Minnesota the day after the Michigan game, it's pretty dirty. Grayson Allen I would say that he is the dirtiest player, but Fears has got a little time to go here. Fears might be coming back next year. I mean, you'd say, where is he going? I don't know, maybe, right. Where is he going? He's probably coming back and he's going to be Michigan State's point guard, right? but he's up there. Allen, Leitner, I think he's the dirtiest non-Duke player that I've ever seen. But again, you could pull out of a lot of players who just lost their mind and fought, swung at guys, but sneaky, as Don was talking about, sneaky, dirty. And there's something, the punters, I would never think that you would do this. But if we were playing basketball and you spit on me, I would say that's completely uncalled for. And in fact, I'd probably go after you. I don't know. You look like a pretty tall guy there. But, you would have something coming if you spit on me. Equally, punters, if you kicked me between the legs, that's a no-no. Foul going for the ball, hard foul, those kind of pushing and shoving. You're going to get those kind of things. It's, boys will be boys basketball, but, in the whole boys will be boys, it's not, hey, let's grab somebody and kick them between the legs. No, that's in fact, that's on the first page, number 1 of things that you don't do when you're a man. You don't grab somebody or kick somebody between the legs, and you don't spit on someone. Those are the things that you don't do. Those will get you a reputation. And Fears, I guess he hasn't spit on anyone, but, tripping is up there too. I would also put that on page 1. Tripping somebody. Tripping. In retrospect, losing to Duke was superfluous. Meant nothing. The Illinois, Purdue, and MSU games were much more important. Well, in retrospect, the Duke game, I will make a case for that being a great learning lesson for Dusty May and his crew. I wanted them to win that game, but because of the intensity of that game, where that game was at, how they treated that game, how that game went, the value of that game is... I will give you that, winning on the road of Illinois, Purdue, and Michigan State. But, obviously they played Michigan State twice. I'm going to want to beat Michigan State twice. If you said, would you rather have split with Michigan State and beat Duke or swept Michigan State and lost to Duke, I'd like to have had it how it went. But that was a great experience for Michigan. And you know what, Ferris? Talk to every Michigan player, talk to every Michigan coach, and then follow and ask people that know basketball what that Duke game meant. And they all are saying the same thing, that it was a great experience that is going to help Michigan. It helped them right after against Illinois, and it's going to help them in the tournament. They were able to play a Final Four game in February. Amazing. So you can throw your fancy words, you can superfluous it all you want. It was a great, I hope they play him again. I thought it was a tell for anybody that, not just, again, it seems like I'm picking on you, Ferris, but there were a lot of Ferrises out there. It's like, I don't want to see Michigan playing a big time opponent anymore. To me, that was a tell, like, this person doesn't know basketball. This person has no idea about college basketball. This person has no idea on how to get a team ready for the tournament. Probably, and I'm not saying this is you, Ferris, they're probably the same people that want to duck Oklahoma in the preseason. Yeah, Izzo and his point guards, I mean, if you're writing a book, I'm not going to write a book on Izzo. Fizzo, but Fizzo would be pretty quickly, if I was writing a book on Fizzo, I would say old hard-headed, or not hard-headed, square-jawed, maybe I would say hard-headed, old lunch bucket Tom Izzo, Iron Mountain, demanded that his point guard, and he was in unison. He needed a point guard that was in his image. Mateen Cleave, so he named his kid after. Tough as nails. Flint took him to the championship. Cassius Winston. Unfortunately for Michigan State and the rest of the world, they had a great opportunity to make a tournament run that year, and the tournament got canceled. That sucks. Sucked for them just in basketball terms. But Winston, a reflection of old Iron Mountain Izzo. And now Fizzo. Same thing. Like Tom, I think Tom would kick you on the, where the sun don't shine if he could. Nah, that's too much. No, I would say, no, that's gone overboard. Strike that. Strike that. Fizzo. Fears pre-flops on shots. He acts like five guys hit him when no one actually is touching him. Well, I think I'll just say it. I don't have to say this is what I would say because I'll just say it. I think that Fears, if you could take away him kicking guys, if you could also take away him donkey kicking guys between the legs, he's actually an exceptional player. He doesn't have the greatest shot past 18 feet, although he did knock one or two down against Michigan from long range. But being somebody that's able to draw fouls on the other opponent, that's an asset. That's good. So, I get it from a Michigan fan talking about the theatrics, because he does. But to me, that is something that if you don't have to respect it, but calling him out and saying like that's something negative. Oh, the pre-flops. No, he's able to draw fouls. It's like when he hits the brakes when somebody's trailing him, and then he gets the foul. That's smart basketball. I mean, if we're going to judge every guy that goes up and acts like that, he should have got a foul and call them pre-floppers or theatrics, and how many guys are we even going to be able to watch basketball? That's basketball. Not everybody's Joe Dumars. Joe D, it used to be back in that. Dumars would do it. I don't remember. I don't see anyone. Ed Kid in high school did it. And what I'm saying is that I got my hand up. When you committed a foul back in the day, you had to raise your hand. Hey, I fouled someone. Nobody does that anymore. Everybody thinks that, and it probably leads into all fans thinking that the officials always suck, that they're always against you, just like the announcers. But this is a part that and again, Ferris, if you're listening to a broadcaster who's going on about hitting the brakes and acting like that was bad, or his theatrics in the lane, those are good things. Let's stay on point. It's the donkey kicks and the tripping that makes Fizzo a bastard. Or wait, that makes Fizzo a dirty player. It's not the other stuff. Bill Laimbeer played 40 years ago. Bill Laimbeer couldn't play like Bill Laimbeer in 2026. Bill Laimbeer couldn't play like Bill Laimbeer played in 1988 in the 21st century. He'd be thrown out all the games, and everybody would, they'd put him in jail. So there's no Bill Laimbeer takes. There is no discipline. There won't be any change in behavior. Good point. Tony BTT does not like Michigan. You are correct in that. It seems that. It appears that he does not like Michigan. It seems like he's treating Michigan differently than, so this fear situation, if once you saw how he acted against Michigan in the middle of a season without letting anything play out, jumped right in there and suspended a coach, I would expect the same kind of heavy-handedness towards Fizzo, Fears, or Izzo, or both of them together. Come on. Smash the numbers. We're being, he's our guy. He is our guy. Mar is lining up guests for his show. I like it. We're ready to talk some hockey. I'm behind on the feedback. Got to do something with the Borg and the confetti. The confetti will not stay in this glass. I can see the confetti raining down a few times. Now, if I was asking for advice, Ferris would say winning on Sunday would not be a situation where he would, if he was in fact on Mars' show, want to see confetti rain down during the show. He wants to go on. I'll give you a Ferris's appearance on your show. Hey, what about the Big Ten tournament this week? Meaningless. Oh, okay. That's it. Nothing. This is it. This isn't a channel for Walmart. Real fans only. I always thought that, I have to admit that the term Walmart Wolverines, really, at first I was like, what? I wanted to fight. I wanted to, treat somebody like Jeremy Fears in a game, kick them where the sun don't shine and everything. But then I thought, it's actually I think it's an endearment, because it's state fans, things that state fans hate, Michigan fans, but they hate Michigan fans that didn't go to Michigan. There's a lot of them out there. They hate that more than anything. So they came up with that term. And, it's like, I'm all right with it. I mean, if you wanted to say in the Michigan State handbook what a Walmart Wolverine is, that doesn't mean you're necessarily a bad fan. It doesn't mean that you shop at Walmart. It means that you didn't go to Michigan. And I'm all right with that. I mean, it's true. People want to apply it a bunch of different ways. So, I mean, I don't know what else a Walmart Wolverine is. They got news for all, the people that they have all these things like, okay, you have to have gone to the school, or you had to graduate. Doesn't matter if anybody else in this school went. Doesn't matter if you were born in the state. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. You had to have gone, and you have to have a diploma, I guess, or else you're not as good of a fan. And if that's how somebody feels, I'm all right with it. When I worked in Detroit for 14 years, 90% of any Michigan State talk was all diploma talk. You didn't get your diploma. When did you get your diploma? You're not as big of a fan. You can't really, you never set foot on the campus. You weren't in the classes, so you can't really get excited about the games. Like, okay, let's let them have it. I'd keep the boys playing as earnestly as possible from a coach's perspective. I think it's good for these guys to keep playing and winning. I think the players are greedy for all the awards too. I agree with that. Here's Hadley. When you get to hockey, I'd like us to play, that means Penn State, and play Moo U for the Big Ten championship. Well, let's get to hockey, Hadley. Michigan plays tonight. I think it's just, this is probably should be called the complaining show, because I'm going to complain here. Get ready. Not that Michigan is playing tonight. I was going to look this up, and I don't know who it is, but the player that ran Ivan Kovic over a month or so ago and knocked him out for 3 weeks or whatever it was, played for Notre Dame. And I saw the play. You go into the goaltender. This is maybe it wouldn't surprise me if his first name is Jeremy. But this wasn't the first time that this Notre Dame, this Jeremy Fears of hockey, had a dirty play. Guess what? Diving at running the goaltender and hitting him in the knee when they're standing there and they're sitting ducks. That is like kicking somebody between the legs in basketball. And whoever this guy is from Notre Dame, he has a history. He's one dirty MNFer. He's one Jeremy Fears of Notre Dame hockey. And maybe I want to see, I guess it can't happen. It's too bad. I wanted to see Notre Dame play Michigan State because then maybe there would be some dirtiness there, and then State fans wouldn't know what to say. They'd be like, oh, well, Fears isn't dirty, but this guy is. And if it wasn't just a one game and done tournament, maybe Michigan will be up like 5-0 in the third period. And then maybe somebody will take their butt end of their stick and blast it into this Notre Dame player's face. Now, that would be dirty. But there's also ice justice. Can I get some ice justice that were, what do? What do? You drop the gloves. If you fight, not only do you get thrown out of that game, do you get thrown out of the next game? Is there, so you don't want to run the goalie because then you get thrown out the next game either? Get the old eye for an eye or leg for a leg. That's the thing. You don't want to, if Michigan played Michigan State in basketball again, you think eye for an eye with Fears, like go up and just go right up to him right before the tip and just, kick him right between the legs. And Israel would be like, hey, and he'd be like, oh, what do you mean? I still got another one. It's, he didn't mean to do it. Not that big of a deal. Or the first time that Fears fouls someone, that was what Izzo's explanation was, like, oh, well, Cadeau fouled him. I mean, foul him. Like, every game you have a foul, so you just kick somebody in the nuts when you foul them. But I could see a little pushing and shoving against this Jeremy Fears from Notre Dame. I, like you, Hadley, would like to see Penn State. I'd like to see Penn State because they have McKenna, who's going to be the number one pick. And so that is Minnesota. And I think they've lost to each of these teams this year. So, but, just look at the seeding. You'd say Minnesota would be an easier draw. But McKenna, who's going to be the number one pick, for the excitement level of it, I wouldn't mind seeing that one. But here's where I would complain about hockey. This game tonight is on the Big Ten Network, which you have to pay $12.50 for the month to get it. And last month I did pay $12.50 for the Big Ten Network, and then the previous month I paid $12.50. But I'm not paying $12.50 every month for the Big Ten Network, and it hurts this sport. College hockey is great, but when you put it on the Big Ten Network, it's not going to grow the game. And the Big Ten Network, I don't know, is the Big Ten Network, so they suck a couple bucks off of your cable bill, so you have to pay for it if you're getting cable. It's not like you have a decision, I was just like minus $3 or whatever it is, $20. You're paying your cable bill if you didn't want the Big Ten. But then they act like it's is it a Title IX entity? Because like, oh, well, we're going to need to play. Nothing wrong with lacrosse, women's lacrosse, but we're going to have to play the women's lacrosse game. When I was in Wisconsin, somebody said that volleyball draws. I was like, why isn't the game saying? He's like, well, volleyball draws really well. The Big Ten Network. Volleyball draws more than hockey? Wrestling draws more. I like wrestling, and I like volleyball. I like both of them. But I like hockey more. And on my cable system, when I'm going through and everything, it always says things. It'll say Big Ten Network, but then it always says other things about it. There's like 3 or 4 Big Ten Network channels, but there's anything on them. Or why can't they have 3 channels? And why can't they run all of these games? This is the Big Ten freaking tournament, and the Big Ten Network doesn't have the number 2 seed in the tournament on cable. You got to pay $12.50 for the game. This is a problem for college hockey, for Big Ten hockey. How many people out there pay for the Big Ten Network? All the families that have, their kids are wrestling, you get all that. How many people are really paying for it? I mean, how many things do they want us to pay for? Everything. You got to pay for everything. You got to pay not only a couple $100 for your cable, now for the extras, a little extra. So I'm complaining about that. If this game was on regular cable, I'd be sitting there and I'd be watching every second. But instead, it's on the Big Ten Network, so I'll be listening to it. But how many other people are going to do that? Not many. I know Ferris isn't. He doesn't care. And one, he doesn't care about hockey. And two, he's a California guy. And two, he doesn't care about, hockey tournaments. He doesn't care about conference tournaments. He'll say, tell me when they get to the Frozen Four. Maybe then he'll tune in. Speaking of Smash, here he is. Get in the door cost for the Final Four is hovering around $600 for all 3 games, or $275 for just the title game. Should I buy? Anybody give me a ride back to Ann Arbor if I pull the trigger? $600 for 3 games. The old get in the door cost, $600 for, you get all of the, hey, I'm going to the Final Four. Hey, I'm here in Indy. You get all the social media outside. Hey, look at this picture. All that, you get inside, same thing. Woo, look as well. But then you sit down, you're like, whoa, there's the game. Yeah, I can't say 100% I am going, Ferris, or I'll tell you this, if I do go, I've got no problem with giving you a ride back to Ann Arbor. I'd be happy to give you a ride back to Ann Arbor, but I just can't say for sure that I'm going. I want more than the GITD cost. I want to know get me within, I don't know, I need to be, I don't want the upper bowl, $600 for the upper bowl. Can I get in the lower bowl? It's going to cost me $1,200. Do I want to spend $1,200 for 3 games? The punters is going directly at Ferris. The Duke game was important, and it was even better that they lost, in his opinion. Here's John. What's John's thoughts on the Duke game? A book on Izzo? That would be a comic book from Don. I need the rim shot. I want a Duke-Michigan finals rematch so badly. Ooh, I do too. Because in a year where Michigan only has 2 losses, and I wouldn't mind, let's take it's not a step further, but it is in the same idea. Let's have Wisconsin be in Michigan's bracket, in their path. And then Michigan could beat not only Wisconsin, they could beat Duke, which would be revenge for their 2 losses. Now we're talking storybook. That does remind me of a story. It's story time. If you don't like my stories, then you can just, take off from here. But here's my story. So I did go to Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago with the Michigan hockey team. So I get to Saturday night. I'm leaving on Sunday, and I'm going through my luggage and everything, and I've run out of shirts. I have a shirt for the next day, but I want to go to the gym. And so I'm either like, well, I'll just hang out here at the hotel, or I could buy a shirt. This is the key point. I could buy a shirt. Well, I'm not, it's Saturday night or Saturday. I'm heading over to the hockey arena. I don't know about, the shirts in the greater, down in the lobby of our hotel, there are a bunch of Wisconsin shirts. I go to the arena and I said, I'm just going to buy the cheapest shirt that I can. I don't want to wear I got to wash one of my shirts. I considered it washing a shirt in the tub and drying it out. I thought, no, I'll just buy a shirt. Big deal. So I went down to in the Kohl Center and I had before the game, and of course they've got nothing but Wisconsin things. And then I'm thinking, well, they splashed red with a big W, and I'm like, I don't want any of those. I don't want a Wisconsin jersey. I want a cheap shirt. So the cheapest one they had was like $31, and it was just a T-shirt, and it says, but in small letters, it said they had two. It said Wisconsin basketball, or it said Wisconsin hockey. Well, Michigan was playing Wisconsin in hockey. And I wasn't wearing the shirt during the game. I was going to wear it the next day. The hockey team was already gone. Everybody was gone. Nobody was going to see this shirt. In fact, I wore a jacket over it. But this is the part. So I get the shirt. On Sunday, I go to the Michigan game. It's a vest that I was wearing over it. And, the temperature, it said, well, it's going to be 55, could be 60. And, I'm parked about a mile away from Chrysler. So I'm like, wow, this is too warm. So great. I had the stupid Wisconsin basketball shirt on, but I had a long sleeve shirt over, and then I had the vest, but it was too hot. So I took the long sleeve shirt on. The quick story is, so I've got this Wisconsin basketball, but I've got a vest over it. But I'm sitting up at the very top, almost the very top of the Chrysler Center, and it's hot. And so what happened is after the game, Michigan's got their celebration on afterwards, and my shirt was unbuttoned a little bit like this. And I was going down there, taking some videos and everything else, and Morez Johnson Jr. was standing there. I was going to talk with him. And I said, hey, Morez, how does it feel to, I asked a better question, how does it feel to be the Big Ten champs? Take us through it and everything. And he just looks down at me. He's like, is that an Ohio State shirt you're wearing? Oh, no, it's a long story. I felt pretty bad. I buttoned it up pretty quick. I said, no, it's a Wisconsin. He gave me a nice look. I didn't say, I really like Wisconsin, but I don't like Wisconsin basketball. But what I'm going to tell you is I think it bodes well for Morez Johnson and his career. Back in 1999, I went to see Michigan football play at Penn State. And outside the stadium, they've got these tables. They probably still have these. You sign up for a credit card, they give you a free shirt. Well, they had these white Penn State shirts with just a little Nittany Lion over here. And I signed up for it. So I had the Penn State shirt. Kind of a similar story. I wore a shirt. It was underneath like a T-shirt. I wore this shirt under it, but if you looked, you could see that there's no distinct that Nittany Lion's a Nittany Lion. And the quarterback for Michigan at the time was sitting outside the press area. I sat out there, and this quarterback says, "You wearing a Penn State shirt?" I was like, "Oh well." I mean, it was just a credit card. He's like, "Don't be worried." He kind of chastised me a little bit. He's like, "Don't be." He had the same look that Morez Johnson Jr. had, spotting, thinking that I was like infiltrating, Michigan. Why are you wearing an Ohio State? You wearing a Wisconsin basketball shirt? Why are you wearing a Penn State shirt? The quarterback, Tom Brady. Tom Brady called me out for wearing a opponent shirt underneath my shirt, even though I thought that I had it covered up. And then, all the 27 years later, Morez Johnson Jr., he calls me out. Nobody in between. I don't know if I wore any shirts in between, but so to me, the sky's the limit for Morez Johnson Jr. for wearing calling me out for the shirt. That's it. There used to be Sears Spartans. I had a friend that called them Save-A-Lot Spartans. Yeah, I mean, that's if you're someone that lives in the back and forth of, like trashing state fans back and forth online. I get that you wouldn't want to admit to being a Walmart or whatever else, but I don't know. I steer clear mostly of all of that. I love the rivalry. I do. The FU part and where'd you go to school? Let's see your diploma. All right. I actually don't mind it, but it's when it's 90%. You could play a great game and the only conversation is about where'd you go to school at? Okay. We've been down this road a couple of times. Let's see it. Almost like you have to give up, draw blood, show somebody, or you got to have your diploma on. Yep, here, I'm able to talk about them now. There we go. Yes, that's right. I feel like I'm the catalyst for Morez being the next LeBron James. How about the next Jalen Duren? LeBron James not bad though either. It's just the whole Ohio part. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm not getting into that. Okay, that's gonna do it. On Friday, Michigan plays basketball at noon. I will be on following that game on this very channel, on this very feed that you are watching or listening to right now. So we'll talk Michigan basketball, and we'll be fired up to do so. Believe that. If you're going to believe anything else, we'll get to all of it. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. We're talking Michigan basketball right now over there. Same thing with football. Same thing with hockey. It's a great time of year. I guarantee you'll love the Maize and Blue Review. Go to on3.com and hit the Maize and Blue Review. We want you to sign up there. We want Ferris over there. Ferris, he would be a big hit over on the Maize and Blue Review. He knows how to rile people up. He knows how to get involved in the conversation. Until Friday, after Michigan's quarterfinal game in Chicago, everybody have a great rest of their day. So long.